All right, Jamie, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today. Um, I'd just like to say, first of all, I love how real life this podcast is because we can audibly hear your children trying to kill each other in the background, which is great for this Friday afternoon, should I say.
Yeah, standard stuff in the O'Byrne household. I'll be amazed if we don't get interrupted by one of them. My eldest has just come back from a week's residential, so everybody is excited and he's sleep deprived. So it should go really well. But I've told everybody that I'm podcasting and not to be disturbed, so we'll see how well they listen to their father.
Yeah, I mean, we'll genuinely be able to see the discipline that you hold within your household through this episode. So
Yeah, I've got high expectations. Let's see if we can wing it through without being interrupted by somebody asking for something nonsensical. But we'll see how it goes.
well, yeah, we'll see. I mean, kids will be kids. I've got 2 6-month-old puppies sat below my feet, and whether they decide to chew me, my shoes, the furniture, or each other, will probably all 4 will yet to be seen. But tell us a bit about yourself, Jamie. Who are you? What is it that you do in life? Tell us a bit about yourself.
So I'll start fairly high level, and then anything you want more information on, obviously feel free to ask. But I am. So my name's Jaime O'Byrne. I'm just turned 40 years old. I am a qualified accountant. I work in finance at Avon Cosmetics. I've got 3 kids. They are aged 10, 8, and 2.5. And between my busy job and the 3 kids, I don't have a great deal of free time. When I have got free time, I spend it going to the gym or going rollerblading, of all things, because I haven't realised that I'm 40 yet, so I keep up those childhood hobbies. And I also just bought an electric bike as well to try to encourage myself to get out and about a bit more without it being so much of a slog.
Yeah, I mean, electric bikes are interesting. I rode one around Manly when I was in Australia a few years ago, and they are good. Like, they only assist you when you really want them to, and the rest of the time you are taking over. It's not like you're just sitting there and
No,
letting
exactly.
you're not just being teleported on wheels.
Which would be awesome. No, you still have to put a bit of effort in, and
Yeah,
it takes a bit of getting used to. I bought a folding one, so I feel like I am perched on it somewhat. But it was nice. I rode it to the gym and back earlier today to see what that ride would be like at 6:30 a.m. and yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, I'm all about buying myself new things in the pursuit of trying to get healthier. I think the more things you can have on hand that help and make you feel like getting outside, the better, really. Or that's what I tell the wife while I spend yet more money. Although it was on the cycle to work scheme, so I've saved the tax. So, true accountancy for you.
there you go. You're basically being paid to buy it. So how can you fight back on that? You're right though. I think that the more you can behavior design your life and have more things as options to be active without it becoming obsessive in nature, but just in terms of an enjoyment factor as well. The better. And if it's more about health and enjoyment than it is about calories burned and going down that wheel.
For sure, for
I'm
sure.
all-
Yeah, I
I'm-
don't like feeling like I've got a step target or this movement is another obligation in the day. That doesn't work for me very well. I can do it on a couple of days if I'm super busy and I think I need to just should go for a walk and get some steps in. But longer term, I've done things before where every day you had to do a certain number of steps and they recommended doing it first thing in the morning so that you got it out of the way. But as anybody who's ever counted steps knows, like if you're taking the kids to school and then going to the shop and then running up and downstairs and so on and so forth, that's a much nicer way to get your steps in than slogging it through like yet another deadline, which I frankly do not need any more of because I have plenty.
Yeah. I mean that leads us into that kind of conversation, doesn't it, about external targets and rules and rigidity, rather than seeing steps as a thing that you do during your day, and a way of like, all right, okay, well, I'll just be more active through the day. I'll take a break here and there, and I'll get out for a walk. I'll take my kids to, do the school run. I'll take the stairs, and seeing it as a way to enhance your life while still doing the things important. It's like an added role, an added responsibility. Make sure you get that walk in. Make sure you get those steps in.
Yeah,
and it makes it less. One, it makes it more rigid. Two, it makes it less sustainable and less enjoyable, and it kind of has the opposite effect that people want it to, I find.
Yeah, exactly. It's a dilution of the idea that you should have activity kind of built into your life. And I'm probably unpopular saying it, but that's why I resist things like standing desks and the desk treadmills and things as well, because I just think I'm not trying to become part of the matrix. If I can't go outside for a reasonable proportion of the day, say an hour, then I need to look at the way that my life is stacking up. And I know obviously there are sometimes restrictions on that, and there's only so much you can do, but at the point that I set my treadmill up and was walking during meetings, I just thought this is wrong. And similarly, doing all my steps in one go in a day reminds me of like the 1 meal a day diet. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not quite what I was after. I wanted to become more active, not just fit it all in intensely. Like everything that's spread across a day normally, I'm now just going to do in an intense block, one after the other, until both the corporate goals are hit and so are the nutrition ones. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, I get a bit excited about it because it annoys me.
No, it's a good point. And I have a standing desk right next to me, but I'm sat down right now because I genuinely alternate between the two and like to have that variety during the day to, alternate between a standing desk and a sat desk. I do have a treadmill that's looking me in the face over there because, again, I was someone who bought the treadmill for underneath the standing desk. But like you rightly said, I've used it less and less. Not to mention the fact that I've got 2 dogs now that require a fair bit of walking. But it was also that question to myself of why did I buy this? I feel like I was still in a bit of my need for steps when I bought it. My job was less active than it used to be, and I had that fear between the two. And I thought to myself, I can walk when I'd like to while still getting work done, particularly in a busy period of my job. And I might, alternate between periods of using it and not, but I did have to question myself of like, why have you bought that? Is that to hit 15,000 steps rather than 10 and feel better about your food intake, or is it actually about being more active? Or because coming from a fitness background myself, and particularly because a lot of my early education around nutrition and calories and macros was all about that idea of let's do all that we can to increase non-exercise activity, especially while we're dropping calories. I still had that in my head of like, your job isn't as active as it used to be, therefore it's harder for you to stay leaner. And I had to question that and be like, is that really the reason I've got this desk, or is it about health and movement? And sometimes
you've done an if it fits your macros approach to your steps, where you're like, I don't care if I have to get them in while I'm filling in spreadsheets indoors with no natural light, I'm still going to get it done, and then I can say that I've achieved 10,000, rather than being like, actually, like, why am I doing it, and what's the best quality way to do it? Because it's not that, I'm sure it's better than not doing it at all, right? But you have to look at the quality of what it is that you're doing. So I went out on the little electric bike earlier for my first ride on it, and as I rode through the park, I just thought, God, yeah, this is so much better than just, even if I go for a walk and I go for a short walk around the block, I try to make it a bit longer to go to the park, because there are so many more things at play than just your crude measure of steps, in the same way there is, with the crude measure of calories or anything else.
Exactly, right. And, as you said, if I'm not walking outside and getting the natural light and the break from the blue light from my laptop and the break from the desk and the break from the work stress, and I'm not getting that period of mindfulness that is an outside walk, are the steps still as health promoting? Yes, okay, I'm moving, and movement is health promoting, but then there's other benefits to walking outside the step count and the non-exercise activity thermogenesis section. So as you said, it becomes reductionist when all you think about are the numbers to hit. And that is also one of the downsides of calorie tracking and macro tracking, and only seeing that as your success metric.
For sure.
So talk to me a bit about your life before we met, right? I'll give some listeners a bit of context in that Jamie worked with me for 6 months in a pretty close proximity, behavior change, looking at this sort of non-diet approach to health and fitness. But what was life before like for you, Jamie?
So life before was a mix of confusing and irritating from a diet perspective, I would say. So, like many other people, almost got interrupted. Look at that. They remembered. I mean, it's 20 minutes since I told them not to come in. That's
Great.
quite a long time.
Yeah, fair play.
So anyway, I mean, luckily my life has always been stress-free, so that's been all right. But yeah, I've done probably the typical thing. So I've been overweight or weighed more than I wanted to, let's say, probably since I was about 12. So as long as I can remember, really, being anywhere near an adult. And I've done lots of different diets over the years, like many people have. And I remember back in the day, before the internet, we would have discussions about the cabbage soup diet and other diets where you could eat as much as you wanted to and still lose weight, and Atkins and Slimming World. And I mean, these things are all, it just created a bit of a shitstorm, sort of for want of a more technical term, because they all started to disagree with each other. And every time I went to eat anything, I'd be evaluating it through 5 or 6 different lenses, each of which would grade it in a different way, right? Depending on what it was that you were eating. Either it was compliant or it wasn't. It fitted your macros, but it didn't have enough micronutrients in it. It had too many sins. You should eat breakfast because your blood sugar will be low in the morning, but you shouldn't eat breakfast because it's helpful for intermittent fasting, and so on and so forth. And it got to the point where I was avoiding, almost subconsciously, going out for dinner and other occasions where I couldn't control what I ate. And even though I was focusing heavily on controlling it, because of the amount of effort I was putting into that control, it just meant that I ended up lapsing sooner rather than later, and doing the traditional being good, quote unquote, Monday to Thursday, and then bad, quote unquote, Friday to Sunday. And so then not losing any weight and also feeling terrible about it. So a real perfect storm. So then when you came and presented at Empowerment and spoke about the headlines that you do, and they're all over your website, all over your socials, so we don't need to repeat them, but I did think, my God, yeah, he's right. I can't go out for dinner. I don't want to go out for dinner tonight with my wife because I don't know how many calories are in what I'm eating, and I don't know how to tell whether I'm right or wrong when I place the order. And obviously at that point I thought, this is getting a bit strange. So I signed up with you.
And what a wonderful time we had.
Yeah, exactly. What a glorious 6 months it was for everybody.
No, and obviously, thanks for sharing all of that. And I'm sure a lot of listeners can resonate with the tales you mentioned there about doing these different plans and different diets, and I can relate to them as well in terms of, oh, well, I can't eat that because that food isn't clean, or, well, actually now I can eat that because it fits within my macros, but actually I'm hungry this morning, but I shouldn't eat because I'm fasting. However, because I'm doing the Whole30, I am allowed a bulletproof coffee this morning, which is a coffee with a ridiculous amount of oil and butter in it that really tastes like some sickening latte, but it's fine because it's paleo. Yeah. And I can totally relate to my years of doing these different things. I used to think eating as many meals as possible during the day stoked my metabolic fire, and I would eat incredibly low carb until the weekend and have a cheat weekend. And it's debilitating really to live life by these terms, because you're never really quite sure where you sit, what's right, what to do. And as you said, something had to change, and so you signed up with me.
And I'd also say even the kind of healthier rules, they were rules really, diet rules that I was learning that were maybe more educated than a kind of restrictive diet that kicks out one food group. But if you start looking at things like, eat X grams of protein per meal, have vegetables with every meal, again, you're just going the other way into a whole load of other rules. So on the one hand, I had all the confusing rules. I didn't understand why people told me as long as it was paleo, I could eat as much as I wanted and would never gain weight. And then when I looked to the other data sources about how to do things differently, they're like, oh, get vegetables in every meal. Immediately, I'm thinking, I just want shreddies for breakfast, mate. I haven't got time. Like, what do you want me to do? So again, I haven't even started and I failed your measures. It's just madness. Like, what the hell do you want me to do, guys? And also I'd look around and be like, I know lots of people who are a normal, healthy body weight and exercise, and like that guy eats cornflakes. Like, why can't I? Why he just eats like a normal person? He doesn't seem to restrict anything, and he's doing okay. So I don't know where I got lost, but I certainly was lost and somewhat and having a lot of difficulty.
Well, no, but it is difficult, Jamie, and we'd have to kind of cross the barrier of health equals weight and the troubles even with that statement. And obviously this isn't that episode to do so, but not everybody at a quote unquote healthy weight is metabolically healthy, just like the opposite is true, which we're learning more and more now as emerging evidence comes and people are actually tested for their blood panels and not just their BMIs. But as you said, like even as I transferred away from a calorie tracking coaching perspective and I was looking at a more habit-based perspective and behavior-based perspective and looking at what good nutrition meant and helping people eat for health, this idea of eating a balanced meal at most meals becomes kind of rhetoric that's taught towards nutrition coaches. And then that genuinely is a thing of like, try to get vegetables at breakfast. And this morning I achieved it purely because I had eggs and therefore I cooked some peppers with it. But regularly I would just have some cereal or eggs without vegetables. And if you're eating plenty of vegetables through the day with fruit through the day, there's no need to get them at every meal, and it becomes just another rule, right? You trade the calories and macros and the paleo and the sins for right, well, I'm going to just focus on habits. But then if you're trying to get protein at every meal and eat vegetables at every meal, then they can almost become do or die nutrition rules. You're kind of trading. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, 100%. Anything where you're having to pre-plan your nutrition choices based on a framework of rules is very difficult to adhere to and feel good about in the long term. So yeah, I completely agree.
So what did it feel like for you to start to embrace that change towards a different outlook, right? Because when I talk to people about tracking calories and having some control around their food, the idea of letting go is fun, but there's also a fear of letting go of that data, that control, that fear of not being healthy, that fear of gaining weight. How did it kind of feel to embrace the intuitive eating line and kind of throw that stuff out?
So I think it is quite a long and challenging process to do it properly, quote unquote. So it's very easy to go, Johnny says I should just order what I want, and then eat it and eat lots of it and enjoy yourself, having all the foods that you're not allowed to have and have a bit of freedom from the 1,000,001 rules that accompanied any eating decision. So that's quite freeing at first, and unconditional permission to eat and practicing that. Again, what's not to love about being able to eat what you really want? And then I think the challenge, for me at least, has been in saying, well, if it's unconditional permission to eat what you truly want and value and so on and so forth, the work for me has been in staying truthful to myself about why do I think that I want this food so badly. So if I say that I want some chocolate, and I'm convinced that from an intuitive eating point of view, it's definitely what I want, and therefore I should go ahead and allow myself to have it, I would advise people from my own experience to go a bit deeper than just I really fancy it and I bet it will taste really nice and I've been in my diet prison for so long. And what I've had quite a lot of success with recently, and bearing in mind, we worked together for 6 months, as you said, and we're now 3 months past that, and I'm still sort of practicing hard on these concepts that you learn. The payoff has been incredible, but it is behaviour change, and behaviour change is much harder than people think. But anyway, what I would say is the bit that I wasn't doing and now am doing because of persevering with it is evaluating why I think I want something before I have it, and then evaluating afterwards whether it delivered what I thought it would. And for me, that's been the balance with unconditional permission to eat, intuitive eating, etc. So you do all of your kind of pre-eating analysis, as it were, as an accountant or as a normal person. This is what I want to eat. And then afterwards, asking yourself, did that actually do what you thought it would do? Because generally speaking, or in my experience, when you're coming out of this rules-based approach, what you want is all the stuff that you couldn't have, right? And what your brain tells you is that A, it's going to taste amazing, B, you're going to feel great when you eat it, and everything's going to be brilliant because all the endorphins are going to hit you in one go. And my sort of journey, I guess, has been in keeping the rigor around questioning whether those assumptions are correct or not. And that's what has helped me go from, as you've spoken about in other podcasts, the bit where, you maybe go a bit crazy, be like, yes, I can eat 8 donuts if I want to, because now I'm allowed, quote unquote, to, okay, now that we've got that out of the way, is 8 donuts delivering what you thought it would deliver? If it is, fine. You're a person that can eat 8 donuts, that's great. If it didn't, maybe 7 would have done, or 6, or none, or 2, or something else. You always have to, I think the balance is you have to be willing to put that work in, and you have to be willing to practice tuning into what you feel and why you feel it. And that for me was a big change. I'd only ever thought about, just give me the list of rules and I will execute them. And then when I'm failing at it all the time, then obviously it's me that's the problem. So I either need a different list or I'll work harder. Whereas with your approach, it was, I don't need you to focus on these rules hard. What I need you to do is understand yourself better and be open and honest with yourself via a journal or just via thinking about it. And then that way you can start to make real progress and understand what it is you do and don't like to eat after years of only ever choosing something because a list said that it was good to.
Yes, and that's that's the key there, isn't it? The list of the foods that are good or bad, or it's the number of foods that you're supposed to be having, either via calories, points, sins, or just a meal plan that you're following. And it's like, oh right, okay, well it's lunchtime and I'm supposed to have this, so I'm gonna have this. And as you said, throwing those out at first is quite liberating because you have that food habituation phase of unconditional permission to eat. It's like, oh yeah, holy shit, I can have 8 donuts if I really want 8 donuts because they're no longer in the forbidden food aisle and I don't have to try and fit them within my calorie count for the day, which would have been impossible. And there's no MyFitnessPal telling me that I'm now over my 38 grams of sugar that an adult human should have in a day or whatever bullshit that is. It's totally not that figure. I think it might be 123 or something like that, if I remember rightly, which I won't. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since that app's not been on my phone. But as you said, you then have to go through the process of food habituation to get used to that and be like, oh, okay, cool, this is fine. Like I'm enjoying, having foods that I would have normally felt bad about or just didn't allow at all. Into that now phase of like, okay, well, if I am an adult human and health is a virtue of mine, and I also value being fit, I go to the gym, I want to improve my health long term while having a healthy relationship with food. What does that look like for me on a meal-to-meal basis? What's going to make me feel satisfied? What do I fancy? And as you said, you almost have a pre-meal check and a post-meal check that you can either do mentally or with a journal to analyze these things of like how hungry was I? How did that food feel? Did I get out of it what I thought I would have got out of it? What I truly wanted, and all of those things. It takes a bit of work, and I think that's what stops people from embracing this approach is that idea of mental and physical effort, because following external control is far simpler.
Yeah, 100%. I found it very difficult to get used to be honest. But then that was why the structure that we had with the messages and the coaching calls and so on and so forth really works, right? Because that gives you some confidence in what you're doing. But it's really quite challenging to tune into what you're feeling and why. And I would really liken it to trying to, back in the day when you had a CRT telly and you had to tune it into the aerial, and you just thought the picture's never going to come, I've got no idea where it is. You sit there for 20 minutes and think this is just not going to work. And then in the end, you might actually tune it in. And that's been my experience. The skills I've built, I have never really started practicing one of the skills or behaviours and nailed it really quickly and thought, I've got this, and then just been perfect at it from then on. I'm still building on it now, but I can see that I can see the progress being made in the reduction in the mental noise that I have around food and food choices and like, I suppose it's like when you stop smoking, right, and you see someone light up and you think, oh God, how could you be a smoker? Like, I see people say, big weekend now, I'm not gonna eat all day today because I had a big weekend, or no more alcohol for another 10 weeks. And I think I'm in a much healthier place now, where I just look at those tactics and think that's not what we want to be doing. That doesn't feel like honoring anything about me, my feelings, my headspace, what I actually enjoy eating, and the meal times that I want to create and who I want to create them with. So I would just advise people that, as you said, it is hard work, and it's a different type of work, and it's less about filling 20 pots of Tupperware on a Sunday, or trying to find a paleo option at the Tesco garage, and more about being honest with yourself and slowing down and taking the time to check in with yourself and really understand how you're feeling, almost more importantly than, I know we do like the Hunger Games and we see what our hunger level is and so on and so forth. For me, the most important things that I have learned are my kind of triggers around food, the emotions that I'm likely to be feeling that I will interpret as hunger, and then the piece around, okay, you've had what it was you wanted, let's be fair and reasonable about this and evaluate it in the kind of cold light of day. When you ate a kilo of dairy milk, was it amazing or was it not? Because also, it's not just about being sort of pious and being like, well, I had a pie and chips, but I didn't really enjoy it, so now I eat salad. It's not that at all for me. It's, I know some things that I have and I enjoy, I really like them, and then I'll buy them in the Tesco shopping or whatever it is. So I'll keep these nice experiences going for me, and the ones that didn't pay off, as it were, where I thought, yeah, I'll give myself permission to eat it, and maybe it wasn't as good as I thought, then next time I come around to do that, I don't have to do deep work every single time I come to choose something to eat, because we don't want to have to do that. What my brain does is takes the knowledge away that I've gained and files it for me, so it's just ready for next time. That goes, oh, I'm in the BP garage, and there's discounted donuts on the side, and I know from last time that they made me feel sick. And by the way, they're stale. That's why they're discounted. Like, don't be a mug and eat those. Just go home or get a kebab if you want. Like, if you're trying to eat something nice, these are the things you actually like, rather than these are the things that are next to you, or these are the things that those rules told you could eat. And that just takes so long to learn. Like I said, I'm 40, so I've been dieting for what, probably 25 years. And the idea that you might not know what foods you actually truly enjoy, and you might not understand why you reach for the foods you reach, is pretty staggering at first. And that's why, it was 6 months commitment, and now ongoing, we carry on practicing the same skills, because I think people need to be aware of the shift that you're trying to make. Because once you make the shift, then the whole idea that you go to the cupboard and go, oh shit, I can't eat X, Y, Z. Oh God, I'm dying for a biscuit, but I can't eat one. Or, oh, I wish I could have rice on this diet, or whatever it is. Like, all that just goes away, because my cupboards are being filled with the things that I know I like and enjoy. And I'm eating them at times when I know that I'm genuinely hungry. And it's pretty obvious, but maybe not for people who are chronic dieters like me, which is everything tastes amazing when you're hungry, right? So you get that benefit as well. So all the food that I'm eating, because I'm eating it when I'm actually hungry, I enjoy it more as well. But that noise, like I say, goes away. I don't have internal dilemma every time I go to the cupboard. My brain assimilates the learning as I go. So I just want to sort of counter the idea that you're having to stand in the corner shop doing a journal about whether you should buy a bag of crisps or not. Once you do these things a few times, your brain learns, right? It knows what to do. The same way you can make a cup of tea and you know how much milk you like, right? You know how strong you like it, and so on and so forth. You don't have to think about it. And the same with these eating decisions. Your brain will get them over time, but you do have to make the effort in the shorter term to really get down to the facts. Because at first, that food habituation piece, like you said, of course you're going to want KFC, and you probably genuinely will want it, but that then needs to kind of deepen into something more meaningful, and you have to keep that challenge there.
Yeah, and thank you for going into such detail there. It made me laugh a lot about the discounted food at a garage, and well, that's the cookies or the donuts are stale, that's why they're 50p. And it's like, yeah, the amount of times that I fell for that when I was in this avenue as well, and it was purely because of the restriction that you felt under, the restriction that you're under in terms of having diet rules of anything in place, even flexible dieting, even trying to fit Lion Bar cereal into your macros or whatever, like I'd still have cheat days where I was like, yeah, well, I can't be asked to count calories today, so it's just no holds barred. It's that behavior of like the last meal, the last supper, or the forbidden fruit being sweeter, and your analogy to liken it to making a cup of tea, whereas like how strong you like it, how much milk you want over time. That really resonated with me actually, because and that process of it takes you time to get to that, but it does happen. You just have to put in the work. And there was, when you mentioned about, okay, well, you might genuinely want a KFC, especially if you've not had one for a long time. I remember when I was going through that period of unconditional permission to eat, and it felt like I was doing a lot of traveling at the time. I think I might have been performing. And it was just like McDonald's was just calling out to me every night. I was coming back from the end of a show, like it was 11 p.m. or whatever, and I'd not eaten since 4 in the afternoon because I didn't want to eat too close to a show. And then I'd been on stage for a full 2.5 hours, singing and dancing my head off, and then been like, I'm bloody starving, I'm just getting a Mackey's. And I was like, genuinely wanted it every night. And it was that same process of going through it. And so it's got to a stage now where if I do genuinely want a McDonald's, I'll have one, but it's also not in my head whenever I have a late night in the car. I'm like, oh, I must get a McDonald's, but it kind of was then. Right. So it's interesting that with regards to, because, as you said, you don't stand there with a journal and fucking decide if you want a pack of crisps or whatever in the Tesco garage. But because I always tell people, look, if you want to prepare meals in advance, or if you want to plan meals in advance, and that helps you be your best self, then you do so. But it's still allowing you the psychological flexibility to make the choices you want and adjust as needed. What's that like for you now in terms of your routine, your meal prep? Do you find that you do that when you need to, or do you feel like you're much more comfortable eating on the fly? Like what's that kind of journey like for you now?
So it's very mixed. So I used to get Gusto boxes, cook them all on a Sunday, have them all portioned up and all ready to go, and I'd know what I was eating. Or I might plan what I was going to eat every day for a week, down to the snacks, just to make sure life was devoid of all joy or spontaneity. But now I
was going to say, if you eat only your Gusto boxes and like desired snacks, like if you have a day where you are genuinely just more hungry, like what the hell do you do?
Yeah, you just blame yourself. That's the classic tactic, right? If it doesn't work, then it must be your fault.
For your gluttony.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you disgusting bastard. Why don't you want an apple at 4 o'clock? Like, what's wrong with you? So now I kind of flipped between different methods, shall we say. So after Gusto, because I was sick of cooking, even though I really like cooking, we went through a period of having we would have jacket potato, we would have beans on toast, or really simple things like omelets, sandwiches, just kind of normal things, porridge for breakfast, all that sort of thing. And now that it's getting to winter, I've just dug the slow cooker out of the garage in the last few days, and last week actually, we just got the slow cooker sachet things that you can get from Tesco. They're like £1, and you just tip them in with chicken and vegetables. And so I had like a chicken curry and a chicken, something I don't know how to even pronounce.
Chicken chasseur.
No, not. I can do chasseur. I'm all right with that. Is it Provençal?
Provençal.
Can't be Sal. It must be Sal, mustn't it? Can't be Chal. Exactly. Italian. I'd have a bit of that, and then maybe like the protein puddings and things from Lidl because they taste nice. It would be more. So we still do a weekly shop, but I don't tend to meal plan. I try to have an idea vaguely of some meals that I'd have in the house, but I don't say what day I'm going to eat them or what time or in what quantity. And if I don't want to eat them, then I don't.
Great. Yeah, I mean that. I think that is the ultimate goal. It was interesting because I was doing a lot of reading about acceptance and commitment therapy the other day, and was preparing a call for my clients about dealing with changes in routine and when life hits the fan and staying on track, because that's almost like the biggest question from everyone is staying on track or getting back on track. And I totally understand the question, but it comes from a place of diet rules and regulations, because actually when you have this psychological flexibility. It is that ability to be like, I have this food in the house. I'm aware of how to cook these meals. I am aware of what food makes me feel great. I'm tuned into my hunger and appetite. And I understand that if something happens that's outside of my control, or I genuinely feel like something else, that I can trust that impulse. Because actually going against that is what makes the restriction worse. It makes the binges and overeating episodes worse later on. And there's nothing wrong with living that way, as opposed to having to prep all of your food in Tupperware on a fucking Sunday afternoon, when really on a Sunday afternoon, all you want to do is sit in your pajamas and watch Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I noticed it very early on in our work together that I was hearing a lot from people about being, not from NSN, but like outside NSN, people being on or off track. And it was such a relief to just be like, there is no, I mean, it sounds a bit matrixy, right? There is no spoon, there is no on or off track, which is really, again, very freeing. So it's the counter to having to do this kind of deep work on yourself. It's the idea that on or off track doesn't exist. Like, I'm just a human being eating things. Honestly, like, can we stop talking about it as I'm an F1 driver? For fuck's sake, it's just having dinner. And while I don't want to belabor my tea analogy from earlier, because I've never used one based around tea before, but I just thought it's the same thing, right? I've got tea and coffee in the house and I've got sugar and milk, but I don't plan when I'm going to drink tea, because that would be insane. I don't say I'm going to have one at 10 a.m. and one at 4 p.m. and I'm not allowed any more than 10 cups of tea a week, or I just have a cup of tea if I want one, like a normal person. And I don't drink tea if I don't want it. Like, this is the other side of the diet rules, right? You think that they're all there to tell you what you can have, but they also are there to tell you what you should have. And maybe I don't want a cup of tea, so I'm not going to fucking drink one because I'm 40 years old. And I used to get quite irate about these diets because they're like, eat this at this time, don't eat that, eat vegetables at breakfast. I don't want vegetables at breakfast. I'm trying to do the school run. Like, I'm not sauteing vegetables. What the fuck are you on about? Like, honestly, did the human race not survive before I had to saute vegetables for breakfast? God damn it. It makes me so angry because of being trapped in it for so many years. I remember going to Slimming World and I used to be like, right, I won't eat before Slimming World because then I'll weigh less, right? And then that just becomes, well, I just won't eat all day before Slimming World. And then at one point I was like, I'm going to jog to Slimming World because then I'll sweat and I'll lose weight from sweating. And then you sit at Slimming World, right? These people would basically want you to cry. I didn't start crying about it, even though I did feel awful because I hadn't eaten all day and I'd fucking run there, right? And it was hot, it was autumn, but I still had to wear shorts and t-shirt because that was what I weighed in with in June. And then you sit there and eat like 10 hi-fi bars, and then have a Chinese on the way home. Like, it's horrific. Honestly, it bugs me how much it really does damage to people, and it's a shit way to live. So that's my NSN promo. Like, honestly, it's dire. All those things do, all they do is make you feel like shit. Like,
yes.
It's a performance review every day with an imaginary dietitian who's telling you why you're crap. That's all it is. And you're always off track. And even when you're on track, you're only interested in being on track so you can tell everybody how freaking on track you are. I don't care about your track. Shut up. Have something that you really like to eat. And stop eating just because you're stressed or angry like me.
Yeah, fucking hell, yeah.
God damn it.
That's the thing, like, relying all your progress just on that weekly weigh-in, and the fact, as you said, you would eat before the weigh-in and then you'd smash a Chinese after the weigh-in because of that. It's that reductionist nature of these foods are allowed, these foods aren't, that food's over my quota, these foods aren't. I'm going to eat high fiber bars because they're high fiber and they're low in sins versus the chocolate bar that I actually want. And my only metric of success is weight loss and the calories or the sins that I've eaten versus actually the nutrition of the food, how the food makes you feel, your energy levels, your hunger, appetite, and all things in between. It's interesting because it can be really tough living in the 21st century, I think, with social media at its height, and with radio and TV and newspapers also incredibly focused on body weight body weight and body image, who looks slim and who's lost weight and all that jazz, that becomes our obsession as well, rather than eating in a way that makes us feel healthy and good. So I can understand why we fall privy to plans. And I was also the coach that used to provide macros and calories in an attempt to help my clients change their figure as quickly as possible, because it felt like the route to do it via, it's forcing it effectively through control, rather than honoring the person's individual genetics and their journey, helping them establish healthy dietary patterns and habits and a good relationship with food, which is a completely different thing.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's there's some value in knowing, right, and having some appreciation for what a portion size means, because when I go to when I go to eat something that I genuinely want and I'm not eating it through the paradigm of food rules, it's still useful to understand that, there's a difference between 7 donuts and 1 donut. And the difference isn't only how full or not I feel, but it has to just be one minor data point that's taken against the backdrop of everything else that you should be relying on, which is very much more around knowing yourself and whether you're really hungry or not, and what it is that you really like to eat or not. Because, I wouldn't have believed it coming to work with you, that if you'd have told me you don't know what you like to eat, you don't know how much of it you like to eat, and you don't know why you eat, I would have denied it completely. And yet it was very clear to me within about 2 weeks of working with you that was the case. And you can follow a rules-based approach as long as you're willing to follow the rules forever. Alternatively, you can follow a you-centric approach where you tip those rules out, and instead you rely on knowing yourself and understanding yourself and treating yourself with compassion, which I think is something that is sadly lacking in almost every diet that I've ever done. None of them have focused on making you feel empowered and good about yourself until what I learned in NSN.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that, Jamie. It's that lack of self-compassion, I think, is probably the biggest effect on people's overall health and well-being than anything else. The lack of self-compassion because of the diet rules that live within our society, particularly the Western society. We've got the most books, TV programs, literature out there telling us that different food is going to kill us, that it becomes nigh on impossible to understand how to eat. And so, as you said, because I've been in seminars genuinely when I've said to people, look, you know how to eat, you just don't trust how to eat because of diet rules. But then their question genuinely is, yeah, but what do I eat? I had an Instagram back and forth with someone today about how they'd mentioned that they're on a fitness journey and they were trying to kind of get back on track because they'd not been doing it for a while, and they said, I just genuinely don't know what I should be eating and how much I should be eating. And I said that you only don't know because you've just read so many conflicting different things that you've lost all trust in yourself, versus being the baby that we were when we would just go I want a bit of this strawberry, and I want a bit of this peanut butter, and I want a bit of this avocado and this egg, or whatever middle class breakfast I was served as a kid. But you just eat whatever you want, and you stop when you were full. It's like, would you not want it anymore? No, I've put half it on my face and I'm done. And we don't have that as adults anymore, but it's only because of all of the messages out there that are trying to tell us that we're doing it wrong. And self-compassion is there to treat ourselves like we would a friend, where we're not letting ourselves off the hook or anything. We're not, giving ourselves free rein, but we are saying, how much would I serve a friend here? Or what would my friend, enjoy to eat? Or, okay, I've had a donut. What would I say to a friend if they'd had a donut and they were working on their health, and I'm tired and I can't be asked to go to the gym? What would I say to a friend? Would I tell them to rest? Or would I say, you'll feel better once you've done it? How ill do I feel? And it all comes around those decisions rather than, well, I better fucking go to the gym even though I'm dying because I got to fucking turn my apple circles round, or get my MEPS or whatever bullshit metric you're tracking that day.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, from my experiences, people don't. I didn't know what to eat, and you can learn it over time. You can learn what you like and what you will eat, and how much of it will be your sort of personal journey, as it were, because you should be eating what you enjoy and what you like and what makes you feel good. And the feel good piece is, vitally important, because if you're concerned that you're only ever going to eat chocolate and donuts, then give it a go and see how you feel, because you're unlikely to feel optimal, and then you'll start to adjust things just in the same way that even people who love coffee, I might have a couple of coffees a day. I don't have 10 because I know that it makes me feel awful, even though I like coffee. I like drinking beer. I don't have 12 pints of Stella because I have a better time and everybody else around me has a better time if I have 3 or 4 pints, or maybe 2 pints, or maybe none. Heaven forbid we could go and eat on a night out and not drink. But that's all very personal to me. Someone else might like to drink something else. Someone else might like to be teetotal. Someone else might be, love sweets like pick and mix and want to eat it all the time. And when somebody says, I don't know what to eat, I fully agree with them. No, you don't. No, you don't, because you've never evaluated an eating decision through the paradigm of what do I want and what makes me feel good and what are my overall goals here, and added in a lens of self-compassion over the top. You've never done it. And that's why it will be hard, and that's why it will be hard work. And you'll go through again, I don't really want, it's not American Idol, but you will go through a journey, because it will be difficult, and the stages will change as you go through, just like when you learn anything, and you'll probably be a bit crap at it, and you'll make mistakes, and so on and so forth. But I would say it's, and I don't mean this in a kind of self-help way, but when you make the mistakes, that's obviously when you learn what works and what doesn't, right? So if I eat a chicken salad, for example, and by some amazing stretch of the imagination it's actually satisfying, then I haven't really learned anything. I learn more by eating the old donuts from the garage and thinking that was crap. Or, like when you're 16 and maybe you drink a whole bottle of, well, not 16. Is it legal to drink at 16? Maybe 18. Let's change the story slightly to cover our bases. So, like when you're 18 and, you drink a whole bottle of vodka, right? And you learn a lesson when you do that either you're an absolute machine or you're normal like the rest of us, and you think, I'm not going to do that again. And obviously you carry on doing it for another 5 years or maybe 15 years afterwards, but eventually you learn. And I found the same with the eating, right? You might fall headfirst into a box of crunchy nut a few more times than you like, but over time you learn, and it'll, like I said, it will sink into your brain, and then it will become second nature, and you'll be sound. But yeah, I do agree that they don't know what to eat, and I don't necessarily think, while I take the analogy, if you give them free rein to do what they want, it will be, suboptimal at first. Like we said, you'll get food habituation, and you have to accept that, right? You can't go from being dictated to by food rules and being on or off track to being like, oh yeah, food habituation, yeah, I'll have a few bars of chocolate and then I'll get on track. It doesn't work. You've got to give yourself time to get through it, and all the time be learning from the experience. But yeah, that probably sounds a bit evangelical, but it's been very difficult for me to take my foot off the accelerator of, I want results, I want them fast. I mean, what does even results mean? A lower number on the scale, right? And I'm having my eyes opened as I go along to, it doesn't have to be massively stressful to go out and eat. Cool. Oh, I can go and stay at someone's house and not worry about what they might cook me. Awesome. Oh, it's someone's birthday. I don't have to feel bad that I'm eating cake. Someone's birthday. What? That's a really sad way to have to live your life. And that is how I lived my life. And now even now I have to practice, right? Because the kind of ghosts of diet past will visit me, particularly as we do the run up to Christmas, right? There's a classic example, because you don't want to just be like, well, I've got unconditional permission to eat, so I just smash everything in sight. Like, that's not the deal. I've got unconditional permission to eat anything that makes me happy, right? Genuinely, and makes me feel good. Like, that's the deal. And that's what I'm now on, 9 months after starting with you. That's where I am kind of mentally, and that's what I'm focused on. But yeah, whoever contacts you on Instagram, I completely agree with. You have to learn it, and that's what takes the time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting as we come towards the Christmas period of that, as you mentioned, because it's not about I think that's one of the biggest objections people have towards intuitive eating about, oh, well, I just eat whatever I want all the time. Like, how's that going to be good for me in any way, shape, or form? And it's like, well, at the moment, all you want to eat is pastries, chocolates, crisps, because you limit yourself of them and never have them. Whereas when they're truly on the table whenever you want them, you're able to ask that question, well, do I fucking want them? Or do I want something else? Like, am I feeling something else? Is something else going on? Am I actually hungry? Do I want this now or would I prefer it later? Do I, what's going on for me right now? Rather than like, oh, I've got a craving for a chocolate. I've got a craving for a mince pie, but it's too many sins that, so I better have a Fiber One bar instead. At least they've got a Christmas flavour. It tastes like cinnamon and disappointment.
It tastes like the sock of a factory worker in a McVitie's production line.
A fucking dead Christmas elf.
Jesus, that's dark. And I would say as well, like the idea, the habituation piece, because I think it is a critical blocker for people, and I found it very difficult to get used to. Is you can't, or I couldn't anyway, just mentally conceive of the idea that these foods were now unlimited. You have to live through that experience, and it takes some time, because if you're just like, Johnny says I can eat whatever I want. Oh, why do I still crave it? Like, you've got to get to the point where you really have had enough of it. And hopefully anyone that's been to an all-inclusive hotel, right, should know what it's like to have enough of something.
Mm-hmm.
I've had enough like brightly coloured cocktails when you're day 14 and you're absolutely dying, but you're like, I've paid for it and I'm going to get my money's worth. Like, you have had experiences in your life where you've had enough of something, right? And that will happen, but it has to actually happen, because just like you at an all-inclusive, you never sit down on day one of an all-inclusive and go, well, I can eat as much as I want. Oh, that's really helped me not feel very hungry. You're like, I can eat as much as I want, and I'm going to, and I see it as a personal challenge, and that's going to be my focus for this holiday. So you have to live through the experience, right? You can't just. I thought, as long as if you can just educate me enough, then it will work. Like, I can just do it as long as I understand it. But I think some things you have to kind of live and work through and see what your own personal response to it is.
Yes, and that's the switch, that's the play, because as you said, it's getting rid of this need for fast results, whatever results might be, because that's what holds people back, is this idea of like, yeah, but I want to lose fucking weight here, and I need to do it by tomorrow, or next week, or 8 weeks, or 3 months, or 6 months, because I've signed up with Johnny for this length of time. I have to see results, and results for me is this number on the scale and all the compliments I'll get from other people because I've managed to shrink my body to something it's not naturally meant to be at, rather than thinking, well, results for me is turning down this forever internal dialogue I have around food, this constant anxiety I have about how many calories I'm eating, whether my meal is balanced or not, whether I need to saute vegetables before the school run, whether I can stay at my Auntie Catherine's house and know that I can eat the food at her house. Is she going to have Fiber One bars? I don't know. Do I have to pack my own? Maybe. Do I need to take a little bag of creatine with me that looks like cocaine because I can't miss a few days for taking my supplements? Maybe. Should I just store the fish oils in my bum so they don't come out at customs? What's okay here? I don't know. Right. So that's actually the result, is accepting that that's going to go away and embracing intuitive eating for more than a day and being like, yeah, okay, I'll allow myself unconditional permission to eat today, but then tomorrow I'm back on track because I don't want to gain weight. It's like, that's not play, because otherwise you'll stay stuck. Whereas actually embracing the, as we call it, the infinite game of health and fitness. Where do we want to be? As you said to me earlier on this podcast, Jamie, which was quite shocking, really, was that I've been dieting for 25 years.
Yeah.
Why do you want to diet for another 25 years?
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you want to wake up at 65 years old and go, fucking hell, I've wasted 50 years of my life worrying about the amount of calories that I'm eating rather than enjoying my fucking life?
Yeah. Well, they hook you in, right? Because the mentality is, if you could just adhere a little bit more, you're like the person putting money in the fruit machine, aren't you? If I just put another pound in, then this time I might win. And this diet that's been sold to me in a book or in a podcast or in whatever form it's been sold to me in, I'm 95% of the way there. I just need to get over that hill. And you're like, no, you're not. You're actually worse off before you began. If you could go back to when you were 15 years old, Jamie, then you probably would have been better if you just had never read anything about dieting ever. It probably would have put you in a better headspace, and you just focused on the single question of what food do I enjoy eating and how does it make me feel. That would have got you further than making a paleo cheesecake, or say jogging to Slimming World, or I'm trying to think of some other ridiculous examples that have happened over the year. My actually I won't name it. A member of my family once made a lasagna using big slices of cheese instead of the pasta because the cheese was Atkins, so that was okay.
Yeah, it would be keto friendly as well.
Which is genius. I mean, obviously delicious, but madness.
I once created a pizza with my friends that was made entirely of meat. So it was a bolognese. It was a mincemeat base pizza, and it was because it was paleo.
Oh God, yeah. Stop lying to yourself. Go to a Slimming World taster night and ask yourself, is this how I want to live? And the answer will be no. I do not want to spend my life in community centres once a week feeling like crap because yet again I haven't hit the number on the scale. Like it's bad, and it makes me angry having had 25 years of it. But on the positive side, we now have the intuitive eating stuff, and obviously I eventually found my way to NSN, and now we have a way forward. But I do agree that the problem that you're solving is not how do I lose weight, it is how do I understand that food choices and diet rules are completely ruining my life, and I haven't actually acknowledged that because I'm too busy thinking that if I just worked a little bit harder, I could have everything that I wanted, when the reality is you can't. And even if you did, once you contravene the rule, which is impossible not to if you live a normal life, you're screwed again. And when that happens, the fault will lie at your door, and you'll feel like crap again. So you need to break the cycle.
100%. And that was what I liked when you said it before about diets are there to basically tell you that you're the problem. You said that at the very beginning. If you could just try harder, if you could just adhere more, everything that you would want in life will be yours. And I've come to see it more and more from my side of the coin, being someone who's educated inside of intuitive eating and human genetics and relationships with food and behavioral psychology, to then see all of these, young fitness professionals who are all completely lean and shredded, just being like, hey guys, here's how you create a calorie deficit. Here's how you, track your protein. And I'm just thinking, and that was me, like I worked at a gym, and so I was doing 25,000 steps a day easily just because of my work. I was training twice a day, focusing on performance. Yeah, I was tracking calories, but it's pretty easy to adhere when there's 3,500 of them to stick to, to stay lean.
Yeah.
And you've got no idea what the genetics of 99% of the population are, or the lifestyle of 99% of the genetics are. And then you're there saying, hey guys, just track your calories and you'll be fine. And you can eat a donut because I can. And look how lean I stay. Fuck off.
Yeah, well, pretty much. You have to, I always come back to, you have to know what you like to eat and how it makes you feel, because even to the point of like I'll eat sandwiches for lunch or something, and generally almost every diet that you could want to pick off the shelf at Waterstones or off the internet will frown upon having a sandwich for whatever reason, or at least if you have 2 sandwiches then you're definitely over whatever bullshit quota it is that you've contravened. But again, this is the mad thing. Someone, like say on Instagram, saying this is what I eat in a day. Like, okay, there can be helpful data points, and I can get some meal ideas and things, but it's not me. Nobody is. I was trying to say that sounds like a simpleton. Nobody is you except you, right? No one knows what you like and what you don't like any better than you know yourself. But you don't know because you spent the last X number of years forcing yourself to, adhere to someone else's rules. You spent the last X number of years effectively eating out at someone else's restaurant, right, where they give you the menu and go, this is what's on the menu. I hope you choose whichever bit of it makes you feel the least sick at the thought of having to eat it. Whereas now you're changing things around and back to what do you like to do? And it's the same with the self-care stuff that we go through in the group, where you don't say, you should read a book for 20 minutes as your self-care, or you should have a bath. You say different things work for different people. The self-care is a useful tool and you should try to practice it. And it's so much more effective than watching some Instagrammer have a bubble bath and me thinking, oh, well, I better have a bubble bath once a day then, like that's the way forward. Bullshit. You've got to know what you like and what works for you. And that's the bit that's hard. And frankly, it's depressing how hard it is to figure that out. Or it was for me anyway, really hard to just get in tune with myself. I've benefited massively from it and I continue to practice it. But I find it super depressing that all of the other things are out there to crush any sort of individuality you've got out of you, and to try to just make you stick to their rules. And you can think the diet rules are one thing. Okay, some of them are sensible, like this is going to work for me, I'm going to drop some weight. I don't mind doing it temporarily, and then I'll balance it out a bit. What you don't realise is that every time you give yourself over to someone else's rules, you basically give a bit of your autonomy away. You give a bit of yourself away. You shut down another bit of your personality that doesn't know whether you enjoy cooking, or whether you like fine dining, or whether you like going to street food vans, or whether you enjoy going out for picnics, because you're too busy worried about how many fucking mini baby bells you can have per day before you've had too many of your choice A or choice B or whatever Slimming World does. You're spending all of your time making fucking pizzas out of beef mince. You should spend your time knowing which pizza you like the best, not fucking making them out of beef. Honestly, what the hell is wrong with the world? But anyway, as you said, it just gets me really irate because I feel like I just got lied to and denigrated by a series of diets and got told that I was the problem, to the point where, like your Instagram person, I just had no idea what to eat. I just knew that I was immediately wrong. As soon as I opened the cupboard or picked up a fork, I was fucked, because the 7 or 8 different diets that lived in my head all said I was wrong. And I also needed, oh God, my phone isn't charged. What if I can't put it into my phone? How many milliliters of milk is this? Just fuck off. Sorry, it bothers me. Ruining people's lives. Like, what the fuck?
But honestly, I'm sure it's refreshing for a lot of people to hear, and we can laugh about it now, but that's genuinely how people live their lives, right? And that's how we lived our lives. And you said, I feel a little bit angry and just depressed that it's taken me this long to get to this stage. But as we apply that self-compassion, don't be, because I just joked there about how I used to portray this idea of health and fitness being someone who counted all their calories and, had mini baby bells, but only if they were the light version, because they were higher protein and would drink protein shakes at every sense of the day. And so no wonder we all get fed that same lie.
Oh yeah. And I'm only angry at the people peddling it, not at myself. My self-compassion is developed well enough to know that I was playing a zero-sum game that you can't possibly win without. And even if you do win it, you can do that by neglecting other areas of your life, because while you were spending all Sunday meal prepping, it turns out that your kids might have liked to spend some time with you, or if you haven't got kids, maybe your family did, or maybe you wanted to go and do a hobby, because most people's hobbies don't include filling up Tupperware. Madness. But anyway, we're through the darkness now.
We are. And I'll make sure not to tell my Tupperware filling class that this Sunday afternoon. But yeah, we should probably.
What class that would be?
Terrible. I'm not a member of that class, by the way. As always, a very enjoyable conversation. I don't need to ask for your social links and things like that, because you don't have much of an online presence as someone who's just a dad, and as not just a dad, but you work for Avon and you're a dad. You're not some influencer or fitness coach or people who I normally talk to. But thank you. Not yet. The book will be out in 2024.
Exactly.
Fuck Slimming World.
Yeah, fuck Slimming World and why everything else is bullshit.
Why learning how to make the perfect cup of tea will teach you everything you need to know about nutrition by Jaime and I.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The book's going to write itself, basically. So
I mean, that analogy was fantastic. I was looking for a pen when you gave off another similar analogy, and now I've forgotten what that analogy was. I'm going to have to listen back to this episode to find out what it was. It wasn't the Formula One driver and being on track. It was something else that was similar to the cup of tea analogy, but was different.
Was it the other one about tea and coffee? Because I can remember it.
No, it wasn't about having 10 cups of coffee a day, although I did like that one too. I'll listen to it back when you said it. Brilliant. But anyway, Jamie, thank you for your time. I'll let you get on with your Friday evening with your family.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. I'm sure this has been insightful for many people.
Good. I hope it helps people, and yeah, I hope people interact more with NSN as a result, because it has been life-changing for me. And that sounds ridiculous, and I'm on your podcast, so people would expect me to say that, but it's definitely been a pivot for the better for me, and I continue to learn and apply and practice and sort of get better all the time. And I noticed the mental noise still receding. It's turned down a hell of a lot just in the first 6 months. Probably 70% was gone in the first 6 months that we did. But even now I can see situations that would have maybe freaked me out in the past. I'm able to deal with a lot better, with that self-compassion, and with the knowledge that what matters is what I want and what makes me feel good first, more so than anything else. And really, that was a message that came at a really good time for me. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. We've been 9 months now, so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens over the next 9. And yeah, thank you for everything that you've done.
Mate, thank you, for that and this time and for putting your trust in me. It's been a real pleasure.
No worries.